Good afternoon and welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. Lots going on. Let's start with macro thoughts. The Queen has approved the government's request to prorogue Parliament. Sebastian E. Payne tweeted, "Too late for Corbyn and Jo Swinson to try and change her mind." So a fait accompli via Boris Johnson. This is a sterling chart. It's a little bit out of date. We're currently at 121.98, and I think we're going to go sub 120. 5th of August, I wrote about sterling, and I said Prime Minister Johnson has elected to take quite properly an impossible is nothing and can-do political posture. But the bottom line is, can he swing it, I asked, and indeed I believe he can. Boris isn't bluffing. Every action, every appointment, every word since he entered number 10 signals the same thing. Britain is leaving the EU on October the 31st. And I asked on the 5th of August, the key question is this: can Prime Minister Johnson self-eject Britain? Can he be stopped? This is a political calculation. And notwithstanding the Speaker's statements seen here, constitutional outrage, trying to stop UK Parliament, debating Brexit, shutting down Parliament, and offence against the democratic process, I think, as I said, it's a guillotine. And therefore I go back to that article and I could not help wondering if this sterling moment is precisely like it was in 1992, a no-brainer. I said if he can swing it, which I think he can, then he has to face down the whispering death, Michael Holding, who was thus nicknamed because he was exactly that when he opened the bowling for the West Indies. That will be the foreign exchange market. So on balance, I call the sterling below 120. I think it is a fait accompli. I think he has triangulated everybody, and I think Britain ejects on the 31st of October. Now let's turn to Bitcoin, which I've written about severally, but in June when it was at 10,700 and it's now at 9,400 and it's breaking down through key support and should go much lower. I said then, if Bitcoin is, in my considered opinion, it's never been about its utility, but all about its safe haven, non-correlated asset basis. I also said it trades in a very millennial, virus-style, Gladwellian way. The most extreme example of this virus-style millennial behavior has been in the cryptocurrency markets. Spot Bitcoin clean break below Ichimoku lead cloud support. Previous such occurrence, January 22nd, 2018, no further comments required. Safe asset theatre historically crowded, that's the point. So currently 9,425. As I wrote, and safe havens which were already in nosebleed territory, gold, yen, Swiss franc, sovereign bonds, Bitcoin, priced for Armageddon or an apocalypse now. I've said previously the most important currency to watch right now is the renminbi, and I wrote something about the feedback loop phenomenon. And David Inglis asks, are traders playing with fire? We're last at 715.50. So a little bit of a bounce after a record-breaking losing streak. Simple Trends, who I follow as well, however, pennant and this actually a double inside day, expecting to resolve higher today and increase risk to the entire system. I think they're going to calm that renminbi down, maybe rally it as much as up to 710. Trading thinking. Obsession with renminbi fixing when trades are done in spot and forwards, treated sun charges. Home thoughts, and the reason I've gone to Maria Eva Duarte de Perón is because of what's been happening in Argentina. She was the wife of the Argentine President Juan Perón and the First Lady of Argentina from 1946 until her death in 1952. In all of Latin America, only one other woman has aroused an emotion, a devotion and faith comparable to those awakened by the Virgin of Guadalupe. In many homes, the image of Evita is on the wall next to the Virgin. She said, shadows cannot see themselves in the mirror of the sun. Argentina's stock market is down 55% in dollar terms since the 9th of August. Staying with Argentina, and a book I read a long time ago by V. S. Naipaul, Argentina is the most complex of Naipaul's landscapes. It is an overlay of so many illusions, so much rhetoric, such bad faith and conspiracy against itself. It is a sudden, artificial society. The return of Eva Perón is about the West playing fast and loose and tragically with those values, with its own authenticity, to create the Perons and the Colonels and the brutal machismo of pillagers posing as pioneer. Its population was quite literally imported like machinery. Then came Buenos Aires because the country needed a capital. The original Buenos Aires was copied, house by monument, from dead European models. Argentina's implied default rate has risen to a staggering 92%. I like this by Wangechi Mutu, courtesy of the artist in the Whitney Museum of American Art, Sentinel, dated 2018. There's always more to it. This is what history consists of. It is the sum total of the things they aren't telling us. That's from Don DeLillo, Libra. There is a world inside the world. A shrewd person would one day start a religion based on coincidence, if he hasn't already, and make a million. Secrets are an exalted state, almost a dream state. They're a way of arresting motion, stopping the world so we can see ourselves in it. Land, the lights of Long Island and New York City ahead, Greta Thunberg. That took me to Frank Sinatra, New York, New York. I want to wake up in a city that doesn't sleep and find I'm king of the hill, top of the heap. I'll make a brand new start of it in old New York. If I can make it there, I'll make it anywhere. My first business trip ever was to New York, and it was pretty remarkable. Political reflections. I was just asked if China will invade Hong Kong. All they really need to do is sufficiently erode Hong Kong's credibility to force financial transactions to other places, Shanghai, Shenzhen, Macao. They don't need to invade Tony Nash. The fear of invasion injects enough risk that capital will move. That's one of the reasons I said in August it is not possible to Xinjiang, Hong Kong, I think. However, Zero Hedge is tweeting Chinese troops and armoured trucks enter Hong Kong under pretext of planned garrison rotation. So that looks as volatile as it was when I wrote about how the periphery and the frontier is a tinderbox, and I put Hong Kong, Taiwan, Kashmir, Gaza and plenty of other places into the mix. China's state media referred to Xi as Ling Xiu, a title suggesting he was not only state leader, but spiritual one, like the Pope and President rolled into one. This before China marks the 70th anniversary of the People's Republic on October the 1st. Hard to see how Xi can make concessions to the US. 27th of May, I said, in one fell swoop, President Xi Jinping was president for life. President Xi is on a pedestal and is faced with the strongman conundrum. There is only one decider in China, and that decider was pronounced as much by Xinhua in a historical announcement in March 2018. In one fell swoop, Xi Jinping was president for life. He's on a pedestal and is faced with the strongman conundrum. The political brand will not permit a retreat, let alone a surrender. Frederick Wu, a professor at Nanyang Technological University in Singapore, sums up the feelings of many when he describes them as a list of surrender demands for China to acquiesce to. If there is a decoupling between the two economies, so be it. The Chinese people can endure more pain than the spoiled and hubristic Americans. 26th of August, I wrote, China strikes back at Trump. And I said, of course, the level of Chinese retaliation was the message and of the ilk of the shoe thrower in Iraq all those years ago. China is to show off advanced nuclear weapons in National Day parade and send message to the US about its capabilities. Military analysts have shown nuclear strength was intended to demonstrate China's enhanced deterrence and second strike capability, especially to the United States. So it should let the whole world see China's achievement of military modernization under the leadership of President Xi Jinping since he came to power in 2012. The DF-41 intercontinental ballistic missile, about which Hu was tweeting as well, will be a centerpiece of the parade. J-20 stealth fighters are set to feature in the event as well. Take you back to July, which seems an eternity ago, 2018, when I said tariff wars, who blinks first, both race stolen cars toward the edge of a cliff. The first to eject out of his car is branded a chickie. And then I was playing on the specialist monitoring data on his mission console, and I said what is clear is that Xi Jinping has repelled the US advance. And this past week's renminbi price action was a message delivered with finesse and subtlety, and whose import cannot be ignored. The point is this: the renminbi is now the catalyst, and China has signaled it will be a shock absorber. Xi Jinping was also signaling he had control of the console. Austria bonds in free fall. Austria's 100-year yield now at 0.61%. Keep in mind that Austria defaulted 7 times since 1800. Austria-Hungary pre-1918 current debt to GDP ratio is greater than 70%. That's from Holger. Traders are now pricing in 4.6 Fed rate cuts by the end of next year, the most yet. That would bring the US benchmark rate to within a percentage point of zero, Lisa Abramovitz. This is what I call the Wizard of Oz world. This is voodoo economics. Further, the crazy world 30-year treasuries now return less than S&P 500 dividends. Why record low bond yields could keep heading lower as market fears disaster scenario, is the CNBC report. The disaster scenario is if yields fall dramatically from here, hypothetically if the trade situation intensifies, if maybe Hong Kong goes badly and Brexit seems like it results in a hard exit, then what you probably get is a massive rally again in treasuries. Benchmark 10-year Treasury note yield was hugging 3-year lows at 1.45%. That's below the 2-year yield of 1.5%. 30-year Treasury bond fell to an all-time low of 1.91%. German 10-year Bund yields record minus 0.72%. And that was what I called bond yields in tilt mode. Let's go to the currency markets, where I'm increasingly of the view we're going to see a very sharp dollar rally. Euro 1.1078, dollar index 98.221, Japanese yen softening 106.25, Swiss franc 0.9820, the pound 121.98. It's hanging in there, but it's not going to for much longer. Australian dollar got a bit of a bounce, 0.6740. India rupee 71.993, South Korean won 12.1666, the Rial 4.1689, so EM weakening up a bit more, Egyptian pound 16.5435, and South African rand, getting close to 15.50, 15.4570. Dollar index, this is a chart from INO, target short term 100. Euro dollar 110.78 looks a little bit perilous to me. Commodity markets, gold, I just written wow, 1541. It's been relentless this March higher, and I think this is the top of the range. We break out of here at 1600. Returns in precious and platinum group metals since gold began its rally in early June. Silver, platinum, palladium and gold. That's from Ole S. Hansen. Silver is on fire in recent days, up more than 7% during the last 54 trading days. That's J.S. Blockland, and that took me back to the brothers Nelson Bunker Hunt and Herbert Hunt, who attempted to corner the world silver markets in the late 1970s and the early 1980s, at one stage holding the rights to more than half of the world's deliverable silver. Silver prices rose from $11 an ounce in September 1979 to nearly $50 an ounce in January 1980, ultimately collapsed to below $11 an ounce 2 months later. Much of the fall occurring on a single day, now known as Silver Thursday, due to changes made to exchange rules regarding the purchase of commodities on margin. Hunt had a paranoid worldview, and it made sense to him to amass silver and hang on to it. When he began buying silver with his brothers in 1973, it cost $2 an ounce. And a big consumer was Eastman Kodak to make film. Before the Hunts were through, 7 years later, they'd stockpiled more than 200 million ounces. The price was soaring past $45 an ounce, and regulators were preparing to take measures to make sure nothing like what Nelson Bunker Hunt had done would ever happen again. Hunt wanted the silver. He chartered 3 707 jet aircraft to haul the metal to warehouses in Switzerland, and hired a dozen sharpshooting cowboys to provide security, according to Knight. Only liquidation orders would be so then what happens in January 1980, COMEX and Chicago Board of Trade imposed emergency rules, including higher margin requirements, totally unfair and egregious. Only liquidation orders would be accepted. It's almost criminal what they did. What came to be known as Silver Thursday, COMEX asked Beige Group, the Hunt's broker, for $134 million. The three Hunt brothers had $4.5 billion in silver bullion holdings. $3.5 billion of it profit. They didn't have $134 million in cash. And that fell apart. Crude oil, let's see where that is, $55.87. We've had a little bit of a rebound. Everyone was calling it to collapse, but we've come back a little bit. Pork inflation in China amid the trade war. I've never seen anything like this, said Xiao Tong, a vendor who's been selling pork for nearly 20 years in Beijing. Every day the price rises more. Emerging markets. A few weeks ago, I wrote that the China Emerging and Frontier Markets loop phenomenon, which has been super positive for more than 2 decades, is now in a major trend change and has turned negative. At that time, I said I would be adding to short positions in the Australian dollar, global trade proxy, global trade is slow, and the South African rand. And I said then the periphery will get smashed as we are seeing it unfold in Lusaka. Emerging currencies are getting crushed, down more than 5% against the dollar in just over a month. That's from JS Blockland. On the 19th of August, I said emerging and frontier markets look in big trouble this time around. Spread over treasuries widened 182 basis points to 2003, the most since June 2005, after Fernandez said much of the IMF loan had been wasted on financing capital flight out of the country. Argentina's bonds are seen in this plunging to all-time lows. That's from Lisa Abramovitz. Sub-Saharan Africa introducing a new currency was Zimbabwe's only viable option. Professor Mthuli Q, the Minister of Finance in Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe, the country I serve as Finance Minister, has been in the news for restricting the use of the US dollar and other international currencies as legal tender. Why would we want to return to our currency given such recent homemade experience of monetary turmoil? He asks. Saying the primary purpose is outdated, it is overlooked that the hard currency reform was a tourniquet, not a cure. Dollarization has acted as a brake on Zimbabwe's economic development. Without our own currency, we have had no control of monetary policy, he says. Not a political decision, therefore simple economic and geopolitical necessities. Zimbabwe's recovery will still depend on export-led growth. The Zimbabwe dollar, comprising RTGS and bond notes, is now the designated sole legal tender in Zimbabwe, pending the rollout of a fiat currency late in the year. Zimbabwe was once the exporting breadbasket of Africa. Now its balance of payments is negative, but with control of our currency we can reclaim the best parts of our past and resume our place in the world economy as an export-led nation in the near future. I've written severally about Zimbabwe. 8th of August 2018, I said the government's voodoo economics, and this was the problem, where it spent $1.3 billion priming the economy ahead of the election. Money it did not have was the straw that broke the camel's back. And then in 21st of January, I was saying there's a correlation between high inflation and revolutionary conditions. Zimbabwe's a classic example. At that time, I'd been reading Yuval Noah Harari, and in his bestseller, he says this about money. Money is accordingly a system of mutual trust, and not just any system of mutual trust. Money is the most universal and most efficient system of mutual trust ever devised. And that seems to me the fundamental problem for Zimbabwe, because who has the mutual trust in the money? Worst August since 1998 looms for South African stocks. Purest proxy for the China, Asia, EM and frontier marks feedback loop phenomenon is the rand, therefore South African assets. And I was saying then I was keen to buy the China EM negative feedback contagion loop. South African all shares up 2.88% year to date. Dollar versus rand. We're coming up here to test an important level of 15.50. Need to keep an eye on this now. 15.448. Egyptian pound going its own way, 16.55. We've spoken about that before. EGX 30 up 11.97% year to date. Nigerian all-share down 12.16% year to date. Ghana Stock Exchange down 7.12% year to date. Africa, World Bank, ease of doing business. This is from María. Rwanda is top at 29. Kenya ranked 61. Zambia 87. Ghana 114. Uganda 127. Nigeria 146. Tanzania 144, Zimbabwe 155, Ethiopia 159, Burundi 168. The The World Bank puts Kenya's ease of business score at 70.31, an improvement of 5.25 points. Kenya is ranked 61 out of 190 economies, mere again. I&M Holdings reported first half earnings per share rose 18.223%. Now, they also gave a 1-for-1 bonus share, so the price earnings ratio is 5.018, just so we're clear. Loans and advances to customers up 5.737%. Total assets up 12.005%. What I've noticed from the balance sheet is they hold far less Government of Kenya securities than their peers, their Tier 1 peers. And that's an interesting point, and I think a sensible one. Revenue was up 2.993%. Trading income was up 38.216%. Basic EPS up 18.223%. So much lighter Government of Kenya securities. Price to book is around 1, attractive on any further price reverses, I would argue. After the closing date for the share offer at 5 p.m, NBK shares will be suspended from trading at the Nairobi Securities Exchange on Monday, the 2nd of September. Joshua Oigara. Nation Media reported first half earnings per share declined 8.299%. Turnover was down 6.961%. Profit before tax down 23.76%. EPS down 8.299%, maintained an interim dividend, cash position down by 34.557% to 1.6 billion. Group's performance was adversely impacted by the suppressed economic environment across the region, resulting in reduced advertising volumes, increase in global prices of newsprint, and investment in new projects. What I wrote at the time of the full year results applies. It's a top quality franchise, but we have seen a more than 5-year decline in turnover. EPS dividend payout is at a decade low. The trend speaks to a perfect storm of the switch to digital. However, in Africa, we have not seen the switch to paid digital subscription, unlike the New York Times and Washington Post and the FT, for example. So there's been a big macro gale force wind, and print has been in the firing line, and the Daily Nation was always the cash cow. Dr. Kiboro made some very forthright comments at the time of the full year results and spoke to a deep level of unhappiness about the local conditions, which have been adversarial for quite a time. Share prices retreated dramatically. At the time of the full year results, the valuation was $115 million US. Today it's less, it's around 70. And then I said, this is a share worth looking at more closely, but the question is about the pivot. It is, after all, a Schumpeter level moment in this industry, and can the pivot lead to a rebound across all the metrics? I said, yes, eventually. Standard Group reported first half earnings per share slumped 56.618%. Revenue was up 0.182%. Profit before income tax down 84.611%. EPS down 56.618%. Cash and cash equivalents negative 232.162 million. Launched a number of new products. 2 TV channels, KTN Burudani TV and KTN Farmers TV, 2 radio stations, Spice FM and Vibes Radio, 2 monthly magazines, Travelogue and Pulsar. And they're just as much about the pivot as it is for Nation Media. Kenya Shilling lost at 103.5, Nairobi All Share up 5.05% year to date, NSE 20 down 12.91% year to date. And finally, Nairobi's 1901 municipal budget was approximately $1,500. That's from History Kenya. Thank you for stopping by.